Everyone, with this, I'd like to invite our next speaker up here, who is ready with a presentation now, talking about updates on global gold Dore flows. The managing director, Mr. Philip Newman, is the founding partner of Metals Focus. He was the research director at GFMS, where he spent 19 years leading the silver, gold, and PGM surveys, research reports, and consultancy projects. Today, he's here with us to present first his presentation, followed by a session, a group discussion that he will be chairing. Let's hear it for Mr. Philip Newman.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and hopefully we'll have a few more join in the next few minutes. I think this is probably, we've had some very interesting sessions today on CEPA and from this morning as well as from Som at the World Gold Council with his announcement, which I think was really quite fascinating for us all here. So we have a lot to live up to in this panel in the next few minutes. So what we're going to do, just so you know, I will be making just a few minutes in terms of the highlight of some of the opportunities that we see in the Dore space, which of course is so pivotal for the Indian refining industry, and of course has been so pivotal for quite some time as well. And then we'll be joined by, I think, quite an illustrious panel with Ram from Goldstream, who'll be joining me on the stage. We have Nick Spencer from Galaxy Mines, and also the Honourable Minister from Ghana as well. So let me crack on with what we're talking about for the next few minutes. First of all, if you're not familiar with Metals Focus, we are a 30-strong team in 8 markets, covering all of the major precious metals. We create our own proprietary data sets. We don't trade the markets. We present a truly independent view of the marketplace. So to start off with this, what we're looking at really is sort of a high-level view of global mine production. And we start off with the totality, which, as you can see, is around the 3,500 ton mark. But from a Dore point of view of that Indian refiners can look at, the first thing we have to do is to strip out the concentrate, which is about 500 tons. And then we also have to strip out the captive Dore that you can see there, which is also about 900 ton mark. And when we're talking about captive Dore, we're talking about Dore that must be processed in the country where it is generated. So that's Dore that is generated in China, in Russia, also in South Africa, in Ontario, in Canada as well, and also coming from Peñoles and Fresnillo in Mexico. So really, the portion we're looking at, as you can see, is below 2,000 tons. Now, just to be clear, as we list these countries on here for the non-captive markets, in truth, some of these are also what we would call semi-captive. So we think of Australia at the very top, getting on for, you can see, very sizable production for the Dore. And the point of view here is that you do have 2 very prominent refineries in Australia. Also because of logistical challenges, it's quite difficult or perhaps cost prohibitive to bring that gold out of the country. You would also add in Uzbekistan as well, and perhaps Kazakhstan. But this gives you a sense of the market space that we're looking at. Perhaps the most interesting slide today is perhaps some of the opportunities that we see from a global standpoint. What we're looking at here, as you can see, comparing 2021, 2023, again, we're only looking at the non-captive, although as you can see quite clearly, we've also included some of the semi-captive as well. So what I want to do just is the next few minutes is just run through a couple of these mines that we're talking about. And I would also encourage you, I imagine the organizers will make the presentation available, but if you want some of the granularity, some of the notes that accompany this presentation, then please do come and find me. And everything we're talking about today is taken from one of the services that Metals Focus has, which is called the Dore Flows Service, run by our mining team in London. So if I go through some of the blow by blow, So for the US, we're looking at higher output from Barrick and Newman, their JV at the Nevada gold mines. For Canada, that 11-ton rise that we're expecting over that 2-year horizon to 2023, that's really from several mines recovering from COVID, as well as new projects coming online as well. If we look at Oceania, which is led by Papua New Guinea, that 20-ton increase, we are predicting the restart of the Porgera mine, which, as many of you will know, it went into care and maintenance in April 2020 because the owners of the mine are unable to reach an agreement on a new mining lease. Discussions have been ongoing, and we think it will restart later this year. For Australia, we have new projects coming online, such as King of the Hills, which poured its first gold just last month. If we now look across to Central and South America, with that 34-ton positive delta, again, we have new projects coming online, such as La Coipa, and also the Salares Norte next year as well. For Venezuela, that's entirely coming from the ASM sector, from artisanal and small-scale mining. And we'll come to that in a moment on my next slide. And I think one of the main reasons we're seeing that growth isn't so much of the trend we've seen in the gold price, it's more to do with the economic crisis there that is really driving more people, more individuals into the ASM sector. If we look across to Africa, we have the 26-ton rise in Ghana, which I think is quite pertinent given we have two of our panelists that will be focusing on Ghana today. We've got the ramp up of the Obuasi mine and higher grades at the Ahafo, and also the restart of production at the Bibiani as well. And that was also achieved last month. Staying with Africa, in Mauritania, we have the Tassias, which is also ramping up its 24-carat project, and also a recovery there, having had a fire last year. And again, just to reiterate, if you're interested in getting that mine-by-mine granularity, please do let me know. And just to really finish up on the downside with Burkina Faso, with that 10-ton drop that we expect through to 2023, that's because we have lower grades coming through at several mines, and also a worsening of disruption because of the deterioration in the security issue there. Finally, for Indonesia, again, you can see here on the far right-hand side, that 11-ton drop. Just to be clear, that doesn't relate to activity at Grasberg, which is obviously generating gold in concentrate. What we're seeing there is really declining grades at several of the major mines that are delivering Dore. Now, I've touched on the ASM sector, and so what I wanted to do on this slide is just spend a couple of minutes just giving you a breakdown between large-scale mining and the ASM. And again, just to be clear, we are still talking about, in terms of the overall pie, that is still the non-captive share of gold mining. And so you can see quite clearly that 65-35 split in favor of LSM. And this is something that we will come discuss during the panel discussion. I think it is really quite interesting when we look at the CEPA that's been announced, not only between the UAE and India, but between the UAE and Indonesia. It will be interesting to see what impact that has. We think about, again, in the context of the UAE, the revamped good delivery system. And even though that is voluntary at this point in time, with their responsible sourcing guidelines, which will be mandatory from January. And so we've got all these dynamics playing out. And then we overlay that with the trends or the developments, such as some very exciting ones that are happening in India. Taking a step back, and not just thinking about the ASM, but the whole, I guess, transparency, the increasing transparency across the entire supply chain. You can almost trace back to the demonetization, the introduction of GST, the ramping up of the hallmarking system, through to the good delivery, and of course, for some of us that were fortunate to be there yesterday, the launch of the IIBX as well. And so it will be fascinating to see what impact this has on ASM. As you can see, it's a sizable quantity of gold, over 700 tons. And in our view, within certain parameters, it isn't that responsive to the gold price. It's more to do with what's happening economically on the ground. And so when I touched on a couple of minutes ago about Venezuela and the economic crisis there, when you think then what's happening in terms of parts of Africa, not so much from a crisis standpoint, but a trend we've seen over the past 4 or 5 years with the improvement in payment systems, electronic payment. So it's really been, I think, quite a fascinating time, hence why we've seen the ASM growing for some time, reaching this point, as you can see, that in terms of the gold that the refiners can perhaps target, be they India or elsewhere, we are looking at a sizable quantity. And I think the other point to make on this slide is not just about ASM, but for the whole total, the fact that you're looking at just over 2,000 tons, in our view, even if you add on global gold recycling, that figure still falls short of global refining capacity. So if we think about the dynamics, and I've only picked out the UAE and India, but if you think about the changing dynamics from a refining point of view, all one can really see is just how competitive, or increasingly competitive, this landscape is becoming. And my final slide, which is, I think, changing tact, but is no less important, is just to give you a sense about some of the trends that we are seeing now. Now, from an ESG point of view, this is nothing new. If you look at the major miners, they have been producing ESG reports for some time. Perhaps there's been a growing sense of standardization of some of those reports, but this is by no means a new trend for the mining sector. I think that where we are seeing is ESG, and now more recently the focus on greenhouse gas emissions, is perhaps coming from the investor community. It's coming from some of the consumers. For example, some of the major jewelry houses that want to ensure that the gold that they are processing is perhaps moving towards eventually carbon net zero or meets certain ESG criteria. And just to pick 2 examples, we've seen, for example, Wisdom Tree with their various ETFs. Some time ago, they ensured that all of their gold that was back in the ETFs was post-2012, when the LBMA first came out with its responsible gold guidance. And as that responsible gold guidance has developed, become more encompassing, so for more recently, including ESG, now this, Wisdom Tree has announced, not recently, but they've announced that they will ensure, or they're moving towards, the gold in the ETFs being post-2019 made bars. The same is true for the Royal Mint that recently introduced in ETC, again, that their gold will be post-2019. So we can see how some parts of the industry are moving. We can see that either those investors who are either buying ETFs or perhaps investors are looking to fund mining or other sectors. Again, we can see how this is developing. And even over the past 2 or 3 days, where we've had the announcement from MKS PAMP in terms of their carbon neutral gold bars that they are just coming out with. Again, this is where I would suggest that some parts of the industry are heading. So even though the title of this panel discussion or this session is attracting Dore into India, I don't really think we can escape some of these trends that we are seeing, these broader trends that we are seeing in the marketplace. And so with that concludes my discussion. And what we're going to do is we will invite up the three panelists to make a short speech, and then we'll have some Q&A, and I'll be happy to take either questions then or later as well.
Do we have any questions now for Mr. Newman pertaining to the presentation? Okay. So gentlemen, ladies, as you can see, we are already setting up for the final discussion of the India Gold Conference. This is the final knowledge session of the day. After this, we shall be all regrouping again here at 7:30 for the awards and the gala theme night. The final session of the day is yet again a hybrid session. We have 2 live presenters and 2 presenters shall be joining us online. This session is being moderated by Mr. Philip Newman himself and continuously just flows into the topic that he just touched. We would be talking about attracting gold Dore flows into India. Right. And I would like to invite on stage our other panelist who's here with us. Let's hear it for Mr. Ram Kumar Chandrasekharan from Goldstorm Group. Let's hear it for him. At this point, let me tell you that we already have our online presenters also on standby. And please put your hands up as I invite our next presenter to join in. Our panelist this evening is all the way from Ghana. He's the Minister in charge of Western Regional Coordinating Council of the Government of Ghana and Chairman and Ghana Gold Expo Online. Honorable Dr. Kwabena Okere Darko Mensah, or Kobe, as he is popularly known as. He is an avid businessman and an advocate of private enterprise, and he demonstrates this in all his actions. Kobe has and still serves on various parliamentary committees. In 2017 till early 2019, he was the Deputy Minister for the Ministry of Aviation. In April 29 till date, he is the substantive Western Regional Manager. In his capacity as a regional manager, he has chalked many firsts, building interesting networks all over the world for Ghana, and he exudes a lot of energy and excellent leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands up as we welcome Dr. Mensah. Our other panelist who's already online with us here this afternoon is Mr. Nick Spencer from Galaxy Gold Mines. Nick has over 30 years of experience in mining, logistics and engineering services with BHP Billiton, TNT, Babcock's Engineering and Meggetts in Australia, Asia, UK and the Middle East. Specifically, his experience includes 15 years of gold experience working in exploration, funding and mine developments in India. As I leave this session in the hands of Mr. Philip Newman, I wish all of you a great and a highly engaging final session of the conference. Over to you, sir.
Okay. So what I'd like to do first of all is to invite the Honourable Minister from Ghana to say a few comments. So, Honourable Minister, over to you, please.
Yes. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you all. Please, do you hear me?
Very well.
Hello. Fantastic. I'm very happy to join your panel. We are happy to be part of this India Gold Conference. Special greetings from Ghana and the Western region. Been into this business of gold in the Western region for a very long time. And as a country, gold has played a lot of economic and social roles in our country and across all our communities. For us, we've been able to use gold to reduce poverty and assist the country in achieving its own sustainable development. As I speak to you, Ghana is the #1 gold producer in Africa. We've been doing a lot of activities to ensure that gold production is always up. One area that has been very exciting has to do with our artisanal small-scale mining sector, which has been developed since 1993 in Ghana. In 2017, we also introduced what we call the Community Mining Scheme, which is a lower level to the small-scale mining, which is developed in communities across the length and breadth of our country. Currently, as we speak, we all understand that the world is changing, and we cannot be doing the old things today. So we are also bringing on board what we call the responsible sourcing program in the country, that we use that to formalize both the small-scale mining sector and the community mining schemes. In fact, the small-scale mining sector in Ghana contributes 43% of gold production in this country. And therefore, we believe that our ability to support them to be sustainable, our ability to be able to help them develop and also develop mining communities are key. And therefore, currently, as I speak with you, government has put in place a lot of programs so that gold traders could source from Ghana. Countries can also source from Ghana. As I speak to you, the Bank of Ghana, the gold purchasing program, that makes it the first right of refusal before any gold can be purchased for other clients. So we believe that if the Indian market wants to source gold or get more flows of gold into India, it is appropriate and proper that they start linking up and partnering with the government of Ghana, through the Bank of Ghana, who might subcontract to what we call the Precious Mineral Marketing Company of Ghana to help them source a lot of their gold. Secondly, we are also looking at the possibility of refining a lot of our gold to add value before we also export. So the government of Ghana, through the Precious Mineral Marketing Company, is also collaborating on building a refinery with some Indians to be able to refine the gold before they are exported. But to be able to get more gold, we believe that the best option is to deal with the Bank of Ghana so that you partner with them and then they can source the gold for you more on a bilateral basis so they can get more gold or Dore flows into the Indian market. So these are the options I believe that are good to go, and currently they are in practice. We believe that that's the way to go.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
What I'd like to do now is invite Nick Spencer to say a few words. I think Nick has some slides. So over to you, Nick.
Good evening, namaskar. It's very good to see you all. Thank you, Philip, for the introduction. We'll be talking again about our favourite subject and the two messages that I've been asked to give about the status of Dore in India, but also how best from a miner's point of view we can manage and broker the relationships with the refiners of India. That is our number one purpose. So it's a slightly different view. What do the miners want? And that'll help hopefully bridge some of those gaps. But the first message I do want to give, it may be on a slide up there, is a message I actually gave 10 years ago in this similar forum, which was the potential of in the country. And the figures were, you can see on that slide, if they're not, I'll read them out. We've now confirmed with a number of other gold groups, 500 tonne of gold. So you can't forget that there's 500 tonne of defined, verified gold under your feet that over the next 10 years will turn into your Dore stream. And that's the work that we've been committed to for a long time, as the World Gold Council and many others have in your groups. So what's the potential of that? That's 100 tonne. That's 100 tonne of gold a year in Dore for India. So we can't forget. But now I'll turn my mind. We've got another mine that we're working on at the moment in Tanzania. And how we go about selecting gold refiners to partner. And there's a number of steps there. But the key word that I really want to leave with you today is it's a partnership. You can't just step up and bid and think you'll get a good chance. There's a number of things you have to do culturally. For us, it's been 10 years' work and a lot of money. We're not going to go and team up with someone that may let us down for that consistent Dore flow into mines. So, there's a understanding, there's a professionalism, it's a culture. The mines, unfortunately, right or wrong, will insist upon absolutely impeccable, professional, reliable service for the taking of their gold at good market value. So they're all obvious things, but it's very hard to deliver them to someone you don't know. You've got to go in and bridge that gap. I think what Philip's put up is some excellent research to sow the trends of where you should be hunting for these new relationships. And it's great to see Ghana here. They're one of the most active in Africa, and I admire what they're doing. You're doing a fantastic job, sir. I think you're an obvious partner to India. So I think it's got obviously a lot to do with logistics and costs, and therefore you should look around India first. You've got to look at all of Asia. It's very hard to turn up, for example, in Perth, where there's a mint, and there's 66 miners down there delivering down the road to the mint. It's very hard to steal that business. However, the dynamics that Philip was talking about is Australia, for example, is growing very fast in its production, and it's starting to outstrip those refineries. So you should position yourself with some of those parties to be a competitive, worthy partner. So you can see some of my points there. Everybody wants LBA refiner certification, and a lot of you have that underway, which I think is fundamental and critical. You've also got BIS, which is, again, another big tick in the box. So you have to be international standard to step into these options with these people. And the other thing is you've got to be on the ground. You've got to be face-to-face. You've got to have quality account managers. You've got to go and work the relationships with these people. Yes, you still got to win the tender for that Dore, and you have to have a very competitive bid, but I think you've got to look at it long term. You've got to spend the time and money on the ground making these relationships and bidding competitively clearly to get those streams into India and show the world what you've got. The world do not know what India does. There's only a handful of us in India looking at the potential and the ability to really turn this into a gold-producing country because of your incredible geology. It's real. I wouldn't have wasted so much time and money to try and develop these incredible potential mines of India. But it's also the expertise that you guys bring as refiners. You are a quality country, and we've got to get you out there in the world and make these relationships work over the long term. And then the last slide was really just bringing all that together. It was building these deep relationships, I've said that, having a local presence. So the three sort of themes in summary for me is understand the service that you require to tick every box and be a leader in the market, and you can do it. Your capabilities are outstanding. Very competitive terms. I think there's some very good business people in this room that have been brokers for a long time with a lot of horsepower, and they're prepared to pitch a very competitive bid. I think that's a given, but you have to give more. And here's my main message probably of the meeting is it's not just being a friendly partner. It's actually being a partner to help the mine expand, improve, build. So help them, invest in them, even be a shareholder. Don't be scared. And you can easily get that independently verified by groups like ours. We can come in and say, this is a good long-term investment. And if you go in as an investment or a bridging loan or something commercially creative, and you create a long-term partnership. So there's sort of my views on how we, the gold miner, looks at it, and they're the sort of partnerships that we want to have. And I know that you guys are very capable of doing that, so I know it's going to work. It's a matter of understanding those Dore flows around the world and which ones you are going to be competitive in. And I wish you well, and I hope my thoughts today help in your crusade to lock many hundreds of tonnes of Dore coming into India. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Nick. I know that I certainly have got a few questions that I'll be coming to you in a moment. But first of all, I'd like to hand the podium over to Ram from Goldstream to, I think, dive a little bit deeper into the Ghanaian market. So over to you, Ram. The floor's yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Philip. Thank you. Thanks for the organizers. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And Namaskaram, Chennai. My name is Ram Kumar. I'm the trading manager of Goldstrom's DMCC, which is a Dubai-based. I'm based in Dubai. Goldstrom basically is a global precious metal trading company. We are headquartered in Singapore, and we have fully staffed foundry and export office in Accra, Ghana. So in the past few years, we have been successfully developed our own model procedures for sourcing, qualification, and export service of mined gold from Ghana. So we would like to share some of our experience in the next few minutes. And let me begin with my slide. So we would like to share the experience in the three key areas, which is the regulatory compliance and working with the right partners and trading successfully from Ghana. So the regulatory compliance, basically, we have observed that there has been an increasing supervision and enforcement, as Minister said, by the regulatory authorities, the PMMC, and the Mines and Mineral Commissions. And now there is a proper requirement list for the robust compliance when we onboard the new suppliers as mines. There is a focus on the licensing documentations, and there is a proper mine visit when we onboard a new suppliers. So with all these supervisions, we were working to develop where we can credibly say that the mined gold is with 100% traceability of mines. So this has also resulted in gaining us attraction from the overseas buyers, having some contract in place for long-term contracts, and the end users, they are really, we have an attraction from them actually. So the regulatory compliance is basically not only something to be afraid of, we can really work it out when we are on the grounds. And Ghana market, we see that there is going to be, it is moving towards more organized way, and the non-compliant, non-licensed trading activity, which is going to be kept away from the market. So if we talk about the next slide, that is working with the right partner. So if we see the small scale miners, basically what we have noticed, they have their own challenges through poor bookkeeping or cost control measures which they take to control their expenses. And in this way, they are unable to access the traditional finance. But when we are going to work with them, it is going to be an interesting place to work, because you need to get along with them when we are in the market. So we have seen some of the producers, they also lack some technical support. And if you give them the technical support, the operational and the business management wise, then we can really have a good presence in Ghana. So this gap which exists to support these mines by providing the technical support, and which could also lead to a sustainable and consistent supply out of Ghana. And we have also noticed that the government initiatives, which are very supporting, and they have managed a lot of people to operate in a more professional manner, and the business model of some of the mines, which are very professional in terms of international standards. So I think there are few suppliers where they are accessing some traditional finance from the banks. So just I kept it very short and simple actually. It's post-lunch session, so just to mention about how to be successful in Ghana, like it's basically covering the earlier 2 points. If you cover the compliance part of it, then we can ensure that there is access of international market funds. Then to just elaborate, the partnership approach, what we provide by technical and providing them the financial support. This is the real key area. Now, partnership with the mines, in the sense, it is not just buying the gold over the counter. You need to be with them. We have to be at the place, in the ground, be along with them. Then you are indirectly giving a respect to them. So that's the key area where we have to be focused on. So considering all this knowledge, we have developed a model what we called as FATE, which is foundry, analysis, trade, and export. So basically, if someone steps into our office, we just don't accept the gold over the counter. When we have a miner in our counter, we onboard them, we go to their mine, we spend quite a lot of time. Our operations team, they spend good time with them. It takes around 1 or 2 days for me to onboard a client. And that is the basic meaning of FATE. So we do the foundry service for them, analysis service, we do the trading service for them, and also help them in the exporting of mine Dore. So basically, if we are able to manage all these, what we are achieving is we are indirectly bringing the LSM practice for the ASM mines. So we are in the forefront, just a 2-year-old kid, we can say. But our team, basically, we have decades of experience in the ground. So if you consider the number of staff what we have in the globe, 90% they are in Ghana now. Okay, so we are in the forefront actually, working with these companies to help and develop and initiate new strategies which helps us back in getting more consistent supply out of Ghana. So thank you. Thanks for the time.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ram. I think maybe we'll start with you, and hopefully we'll get a microphone up on the stage for you. Just while we're waiting for that, I know you touched on it, but could you expand maybe just a little bit more details? I found it quite fascinating, your FATE model. Could you just go in perhaps a little more depth? Because I think it'd be really quite interesting to get your view on Ghana from the commercial aspect, and then to compare that and weigh that against the Honourable Minister afterwards. So if I could start with you, please.
Yeah, so... Hello?
Yep.
Yeah, so Philip, basically FATE is what when we were in the market, like when we started in Ghana, we were on the same hope, like we just have a counter in Ghana, just source gold and sent it out. But practically when you go to the market, just be with the miners, especially the small scale miners and the artisanal miners. When you are with them like shoulder to shoulder, attending their problems, when you face them, if we are able to resolved that we are adding value to them, and it's like a personal relationship which we build with them, because we are looking for longer term relationship. It's not like just accept the gold what we get in the market and just export it. So when we were able to adopt this strategy, we just named it as a fate, because it's a fate, like you have a relation with someone, you create it for a longer time. And that's not only for the miners basically, it's also for the accumulator, or maybe you can call us as an accumulator. And when we send it for refining, so for them also they have the traceability of gold. Especially in India, if you see that they are looking for some compliance background sourcing, then we are there. So this is what we can, and it's easily adoptable to move to other markets also.
Gotcha. Excellent. All right, thank you, Ram. If I can just sort of segue to the Honourable Minister or Kobe, from your comments, I was really quite intrigued in a couple of things. One was the Minerals Commission and also the Alternative Livelihoods Project. Could I ask you just to expand on both of those two, please, just to give us a bit more of a flavour of what they mean?
Okay. The Minerals Commission is responsible for regulation and management of mineral resources in our country. The alternative livelihood programs are programs that are done to support miners, especially small-scale miners. You know, for a very long time, there was so much informality in the mining space, especially among the small-scale mining area. And you also come to realize that if they are producing 43% of Ghana's gold production, then there's a need, one, for formalization. And therefore, the Bank of Ghana purchasing program, gold purchasing program, was also help in the formalization process, so that the Bank of Ghana will not be buying gold from people who have not been formalized. Because all over the world, we need traceability. We need to ensure that mines do not encourage minors in mining in those areas. That's human right risk issues. We are also looking at the environment as well. And therefore, all these areas of concern need to be tackled. And therefore, the Minerals Commission, in partnership with the PPMC, which is a Precious Mineral Marketing Company, work together to make these things are done. In fact, there is even digitization of the assaying of the gold that is currently being done in the country. But whilst we are fighting the illegalities in the system, which in Ghana we call the galamsey, we need to provide an alternative livelihood program for people who were already previously engaged in them. And therefore, we have even upskilled it into a national alternative employment and livelihood program, and the NEL, where we tend to train people who are into illegal mining in other specific areas of the industry. For instance, some of them are put into the normal alternative livelihood programs like hairdressing, like welding, and the rest. Others are also put into areas of afforestation, because when people degrade the land, we need to redo the afforestation. So we put them into alternative livelihood programs like that. Others are also trained by the University of Mines and Technology in the Western region to understand the engineering of mining. And they are the only people who are allowed to work in the mining schemes, because then they can understand the geology, they can understand the processing, and make sure that best mining practices are in that area of alternative livelihood programs. So the idea basically is that in the case like we have in the OECD guidelines for responsible supply chains of minerals, you understand that there are guidelines that guide them in making sure that they do the right thing, so that when people source gold along that value chain, we are sure that they are the right type of gold for it. And Ghana is also signatory to the Minamata Convention. So naturally, things like mercury are not allowed in the country. So they are also taught how to get away from using these chemicals to new equipment like the direct smelting machine, which we call the Sikabuchia, that has been developed by the University of Mines and Technology. We also have what we call the gold catcher, which recently government has distributed over 100 pieces to scale mining companies and then community mining companies so that they can process the gold in Ghana without mercury, and the recovery rate is around 95%. Right. So basically, the idea of the Alternative Livelihood Program and the Minerals Commission is to complement each other to support gold purchase or supply chains in the country, especially for the Bank of Ghana, which is currently have a strong gold buying program in the country, and that is to help formalize the gold business in the country. And like I said earlier in my first presentation, they have the first right of refusal to buy any gold in the country by directive that was issued even recently.
Gotcha. Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Nick,
Thank you, Jim.
If I can come to you and really change tack completely. Your first slides, I know we're talking about sourcing Dore in the current here and now, but your first slide about India I thought was quite interesting. And I know your commitment to India. I don't know how many IGCs or IIGCs that you've attended over the years here. And hopefully you'll be back here, or we'll see you next year in person. You touched on a 5-year plan. What do you think, sort of starting from now, where do you think the industry will be, say, in 5 years' time? And maybe a slightly unfair question, but I'm chairing the panel, so I guess that's my prerogative. Which IGC do you think that we'll be talking about when we're seeing an actual development of the Indian gold sector?
Yes, time is a difficult predictor. But let me say these figures, yes, that we present, worked with the government to get these figures. These are real figures, independently verified, as I said. So 20 gold mines, which was listed, all developed by groups like ours. So what's the fair figure? At the moment, the number of mines operational is one only, which is national owned. There are no private mines. There is one currently being built by a joint venture partner of ours. And the reality is, in our educated view, we're all mining engineers, there should be in 5 years, approximately 5 mines. That's the stage we're at. We're not explorers anymore. We're not gold mine developers. We're gold mine builders, operators. So there's enough data on the ground. The only problem is the government does lag behind us. And they don't give licences according to the book, and now the law's changed again, and it just tends to go down, and the taxes are very high. So these things slow down that progress. So I'm probably still one of the more bullish ones in saying figures, but the government believes them and we believe them, but execution is not very clinical. It's very difficult, these first couple of mines, to get built. But the number is 5 mines in 5 years would be a very good result, and the average mine makes 2 tonne a year. So there's 10 tonne. But the potential, I think you're leading to, which IGC will we come to really announce ourselves as arriving, you know. I think there's an obvious 10 mines in India at the moment that can be built in the next 5 years with government assistance. But if the government doesn't assist, if it keeps taking permits away from us and then auctioning them out again, you know, after we've spent all the time, effort and work, and, you know, we're experts in our field and there's none in India. So it's important that people like us stay and persist. So that's the number. The actual big number, though, was the 100 tonne per annum. And just so you understand that figure, it's not a figure pulled out of the air. It's based on 20 gold mines that was agreed with the government, and based on our knowledge of what we think those mines could be. 100 tonne per annum is a stretch goal, and I think, honestly, that'll probably take 15 years. So it's a long haul to get up to that, but let's start somewhere. Let's get one mine, which will produce 2 tonne. Let's get it up to 10 tonne. That should happen in the next few years. So in 5 years, I'd love to be sitting here, Philip, and saying that in 5 years' time, IGC, we've got 5 mines built.
Gotcha.
That would be great.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for that. Obviously, quite some time before it starts to impact the current account deficit. But as you say, you've got to start somewhere gradually, and then obviously build up from that. Changing tact again, actually, Ram, if I can come back to you. I know you touched on your fate model, and maybe it's linked to the fact I didn't realise that you said you had 90% of your people in Ghana. Are you looking to roll out or consider rolling out your fate model into other markets? Or perhaps a follow-up question, do you see, even if it's not a country where, say, Goldstream is thinking about, is this something that could be replicated elsewhere?
Yeah, see, basically when the model what we are working on, it's easy to be adopted to the next countries.
Right.
We are aiming for West Africa because the people on grounds, basically, they are in the market for last, I can say around 15 years there in the West African market. And to be on plans, like actually we are next, after West Africa, we'll be moving to Indonesia.
Okay.
Somewhere around 2023, mid of 2023. So we got this plan because the model has been working really fine. And just to extend, Philip, in Ghana, basically the main foundry is in Accra, but we have 4 front offices where we are right there in the mines actually. So we are going places. The offices are on the ground actually, not only in Ghana.
Okay, interesting. All right, thank you very much. I guess it's quite interesting because again, one of the earlier sessions today was talking about, I guess the focus was maybe more on the, for obvious reasons, on the UAE-India CEPA, but the ink is almost dry on the UAE-Indonesian CEPA. So I guess it'll be interesting to see what impact that has and in terms of how you develop next year where we are, but quite interesting. If I can come back, go back to Ghana, but go back to the Honourable Minister. And
Yes.
just in terms of, I think, a lot of what you spoke about in terms of the ASM sector was really quite fascinating. I think incredibly encouraging. Could you just maybe just say a little bit about some of the challenges that you've had in organising the sector? And I'm sure that those challenges aren't over yet, because that could probably be, without sounding too grand, maybe that's something that other countries can learn as they start to structure and organise their ASM. So if you can maybe just touch on some of the challenges that you've seen in Ghana, please.
Yes. Basically, when the ASM was organized, starting from 1993, the main objective, like I said earlier, was to help it create jobs. And we still believe in the ability of the ASM to create jobs. Currently, as I speak to you, over 1 million to 2 million people are projected to be in that sector. Recently, when we started with the community mining scheme as a way to reduce the illegalities in the system, that has also created roughly 51,000 jobs with 38 concession, which is expected to increase to about 50 by the end of the year and then increase to 100 by next year. By 2024, we are expecting to do about 300 because we've seen the potential for direct job creation. We've also had difficulties with the sector in the sense that some of them don't employ the best mining practices. So earlier this year, government declared 2 red zones: no mining in water bodies, and then no mining in forest reserves. But people can be recalcitrant, and therefore the security forces need to keep chasing after them. And it's one of the reasons why the Bank of Ghana Gold Buying Program also came up to help formalize this sector. One other challenge was the sourcing program itself, because then you need to start the certification, which is key. Government has been able to successfully help one of the refineries get certification from the Responsible Jewelry Council, which is the Ghana Gold Coast Refinery company. And then currently the Precious Mineral Marketing Company is going through the process with its board to also start the process of certification. And you know that Responsible Jewelry Council is an affiliate of the LBMA. So the certification is also part of the program that is being done, which is not complete. The other challenge we also tend to have is that we have a lot of people in the gold buying market, which we believe that the certification in the gold buying program would be able to get them move out of the market. The last but least other challenge has to do with investment in the small-scale mining sector. You know, small-scale and the community mining sector. Naturally, they need sponsors to help them industrialize it, buy equipment, technology, and the rest. And that's one area that we are looking at financing for them. Currently, as I speak with you, we have what we call the Minerals Income and Investment Fund, which collect Ghana's royalties and then Ghana's shares in all the big mining companies. And they plan to start a pilot incubation program to help support small-scale miners to invest in equipment, in processing, in training. And that is something that is also, even though currently financing is a challenge, that is coming up as an opportunity. And that is also an opportunity for investors who also want to invest or put money into the Minerals Income Investment Fund for onward investment in small-scale mining company. Because in our country, small-scale mining, which contribute 43% to production, and the community mining scheme does not allow the participation of foreigners. Foreigners are supposed to do the large-scale and the medium-scale mining sector. So the challenge with finance, that's one area. It's one area that the cost of production is also not as high as the large-scale mining companies. And therefore, any investment in that area of challenge of financing small-scale mining is key to develop the sector to continue to produce and to be number one, making Ghana number one production of gold in Africa. So these key challenges are the issues that in there, but we've been able to raise the odds, because one way of doing formalization was to quickly do the community mining schemes. And currently we've done like 50. So that's about 50 factories or 50 mining sites or 50 years. So if you're able to even engender productivity in that area by investment, naturally, gold production will go up and gold production goes up. We believe that India can partner with Bank of Ghana or the Precious Mineral Marketing Company to be able to buy gold. Because like I said, currently, the first right of reserve for gold purchase is the Bank of Ghana. And they do their purchase through the Precious Mineral Marketing Company.
Great. Thank you very much for that. I guess changing tack a little bit and coming to Nick. I guess to perhaps roll up a few questions together. You touched on the new mine that you're looking, I think, to bring online in a couple of years. I think if I heard that right, or thereabouts. What role is ESG playing in that? And is that impacting how you think about a partner for an offtake agreement? And a slightly, not really tongue-in-cheek question, but do you think that, I mean, given where the gold price has done, it's fallen from around 2,000 to the mid-1700s in a few months. Do you think that it's easier to implement an ESG strategy when gold prices are high, as opposed to a little bit more depressed? So there's quite a few things there.
Yeah, that's a good question. There are a few bits to it, but in simple terms, I think, responsible sourcing and low emissions is a non-negotiable. It's whether, and your question is more, I think we all agree that actually, is there enough profit in mining to address that and for the refiner? So from our point of view as a miner, we will put those things in place because they're not a lot more expensive. If we want green power, we'll put in windmills and do solar and get a good contractor in to manage it. And that's not going to be hugely different than the coal-fired power that we're putting major lines in to bring it into the site. So it's not a huge difference. And so I say we charge on. We charge on as miners, and the refiners also look at low emissions and better ways to power their refineries. And I think it's just something we all have to do. And it may cost a little bit more, but I think there's enough profit in our businesses at the moment at this gold price. For example, our all-in mining costs for gold in India, based on all our modelling, is about $800 an ounce. And as you said, the price is $17 an ounce. So that's more than enough gross margin to have responsible practices and operations in India and everywhere. So maybe we've got critical mass and we're lucky. It's probably a little bit harder to do that at all the very smaller mines, but I think we've got to help each other in the industry to make these rules feasible, economic, profitable, and responsible.
Gotcha. Excellent. Thank you very much for that. And I think probably the final question goes to Ram. I think as everyone knows at this conference, Indian refineries have a long-standing and very successful engagement with the Ghanaian industry. But with the increasing focus on ESG, responsible sourcing, do you think that will change any of that engagement, any of that dynamic, or how do you see that changing or evolving?
Yeah, see, the answer what I can give is, for a refiner, they need a consistent supply with some committed figures or getting into some contract. And we are taking all the exercise to fulfill the compliance part of it, which is going to be the major part. And then comes the ESG where as an accumulator, yes, we know the traceability of gold. And as a next step, from how it is produced, yes, we are speaking to the mines, like we are pointing out that what is the best practice they adopt where we can source the gold from them. So for me, the KYC checklist, it's not just a list of paper. We go in person with them. We find out that how the practice is. So I think we are there. So ESG part of it, yes, we are covering. And the Indian refiners, those who are looking for some consistent long-term supply, long-term partnership, yes, we are there.
Great, thank you. All right. I think probably we are out of time. So if anyone does have questions, then maybe please find me or Ram. We're obviously around for the rest of today.
Any questions though, even if there's one or any? Otherwise, of course, as Mr. Newman has already clarified, they would be available through the day for you to reach out to either of them should you wish to discuss something with them one-on-one. So a big thank you, gentlemen, that are with us right here and that are with us online. All right, everyone. So as we conclude this particular discussion, this was the final knowledge session of the India Gold Conference. Please put your hands up, not only for our speakers, our panelists, but also for yourself. As we conclude the knowledge session of the conference, A big thank you to both our speakers that were there with us online. Thank you so much, Honorable Dr. Mensah, sir, for joining us. A big thank you also going out to Mr. Nick Spencer. Thank you for taking the time out. May I please request Mr. Philip Newman to present a memento to Mr. Ram right here on the stage for his time on the panel discussion.
Let's get it the right way around. Thank you.
May I request Mr. Chanda Venkatesh to please join us on the stage and present a memento to Mr. Philip Newman.
Congratulations.
Ram sir, please stay on the stage for a group picture.
Not entirely sure.
So gentlemen, audience, this is pretty much your final round of applause thus far. After this, the next time you put your hands up to clap, it'll be for the awards that will happen here from 7:30 onwards in the evening. It's been a great session over the last 2 days. Thank you for all your participation. Let me remind you once again that each one of these presentations will be live on the website within the next 1 week. So please go back and refer to them as and when they come up. Thank you so much, everyone. Inviting you to just chill, relax, and feel the vibe for the next 2 hours. Till we see you again, 7:30 onwards, for a glittering finale of the India Gold Convention Awards and Celebration. Thank you so much. You've been a great audience. A big thank you to our online guests as we sign off from here. This was the final session of the convention.